All right, we have formed a quorum. Let's call the meeting to order. Confirmation of minutes of the last meeting. The minutes of meeting have been issued to members since the last meeting. Paper number CB-2 1008/14-15. So it's the minutes of meeting held on the 26th of January 2015. So any proposals for amendments or comments? If not, then minutes confirmed. Next item, further discussion on the registration, testing and development of proprietary Chinese medicines and introduction of good manufacturing practice or GMP requirements to pCms. We have a total of 3 papers for this item, so I'm sure members have received them, and the administration has already provided papers in response to the comments made by the 60+ deputations. So there has been a written response from the administration. So shall we invite Professor Chen to walk us through the paper? And also on the 6th of March, Dr. K.K. Kwok also wrote to me asking about an issue or incident involving a pCM being sold as a general food, as the relevant issue or incident has already started legal proceedings, and the DOH has already made a ruling, and there might be appeals from the aggrieved party. That's why, as a subcommittee, we are not supposed to discuss specific incidents, but then as this might be related to issues under discussion, that's why I've already said that we can have a discussion. In other words, if certain pCms cannot be registered under the new medicine category, then what can they do? So can they just reclassify that as food? And what if they are not able to get approval or license? Would it be rather difficult for them to get a license and so on? So these are issues that we can discuss. First, let's invite the administration to brief us. Thank you, Chairman. Are we going to discuss the first item first? Yes. In response to the comments made by members and deputations with regard to the GMP management for pCms and the whole system regulating the industry, we have provided a paper that is CB-2 983/14-15-1. We also understand that some members would like to discuss the issue or the incident referred by the chairman on the incident involving pCM being registered as food. So can I suggest that we discuss item 1 first, that is about the GPM testing requirement, and then for the press report we can discuss that under item 2. For item 1 is about the introduction of GMP requirements and also the testing of pCms. And in para 17 to 20 in our paper, we have said that for the purpose of guaranteeing public safety in terms of management and so on, we have to move with time. We also have to ensure that we'll be able to meet the GMP requirements. And the administration has already carefully considered the views from the sector and also the actual situation, so that after balancing public interests with the interests of the sector, we have come up with the implementation timetable, and we will be doing this in a progressive manner. That is for pCms meeting GMP requirements. We will be doing that in stages. And as I said last time, the relevant policy is still being put out for consultation. That's why the administration has not yet got a GMP implementation timeframe. We also understand that last time we heard a lot from the deputations with regard to the GMP requirements. They are of the view that the requirements are too stringent, and also that would also not be able to cater for the situation whereby there would be traditional ways of preparing certain prescriptions and so on. And also the public are very concerned about public hygiene, in particular for oral prescriptions. They would be very concerned. That's why for pCms, they would also have to meet certain hygiene standards. Only then will the public be assured in taking such pCms. And also, the purpose of introducing this requirement, that's to ensure that pCms will be able to meet objective and reasonable public hygiene and manufacturing standards. And as I just said, at present, we haven't got any timetable for implementing the GMP. And if we were to do it, we would be doing this in a progressive manner. And we will also be providing support and assistance to the sector. In supporting the trade to introduce GMP requirements, you can also make reference to para 18 to 20 of our paper. That's why I'm not going to bother you with the details there. As far as the testing of pCM is concerned, I'm sure you must have noticed that in the 2015 policy address, it's been announced that the administration has already accepted the recommendation from the Chinese Medicine Committee or Development Committee, so that we would be setting up a dedicated laboratory to do the testing, so that we'll be coming up with reference standards. So other than conducting researches and also other than coming up with other standards, we will also be engaging in some high-end researches, so that for quality control and also the ability to identify or distinguish the various materials, so that we'll be able to come up with this new standards. And through different platforms, we will be working together with our mainland counterparts, so that with regard to the reference standards, we'd like to enhance it to an authoritative international standards, so that we will be able to promote the local Chinese medicine sector, so that it can become more internationalized. And we will also be making preparation for the laboratories setting up. So that's the initial statement, and I'll be happy to take questions. Well, last time, the first item for discussion today is to respond to some issues arising from our discussion last time, other than the new standards, and also we will also be looking at testing and so on. So we are not just discussing the testing standards. Okay, are there any questions? If not, then I'll ask first. Yes, Mr. Yu Si Wing. Yes. I'm not going to set a time limit first. Well, concerning GMP, I think that the sector and the administration do have a gap in terms of their requirements, and the administration is aiming at moving towards international standards. So it looks like you're going to implement GMP no matter what. And first, you're actually developing the CMMC, the Chinese Material Medical Standards. If that is the case, then it will become even more stringent. Then in terms of the licensing, safety standards, and also the whole regime will be set at a very high level. And of course, it will be good for Hong Kong's reputation and image. And for the larger corporations, it would be good because they'll be able to monopolize the market if that is the case. But then for so many years, in terms of TCM's development in Hong Kong, it's been very robust. So many Hong Kong people accept some traditional pCM, and they are widely available in the Hong Kong market. But then if you were to introduce such high standards, in other words, you're actually issuing this yellow card to the SMEs, and you're actually telling them that they are doomed. So you can actually understand their feelings. Yes, you said that you would be doing that in a progressive manner. By that, you're actually suggesting that the target would be international standards, and there might be a transitional period. Yes, you do not have a timetable yet. But then, in the end, you will have to come up with a timetable anyway, whether it's 5 years, 3 years, or whatever. So, in the process, I don't know if the administration has got this consideration after listening to the voices expressed by the sector, so that can you consolidate the views from the sector so that between the existing standards and the future international standards, in between, is there a halfway house for the survival of these so-called SMEs? So after listening to their views, would you have that consideration, and what kind of conclusion have you come to? And if you don't, then are you saying that, the only thing that I can do is to give you more time, and then in the end you will have to meet those standards? So what's your consideration right now, so that these so-called very anxious SMEs, so despite their anxiety, they will know that between the existing standards and the international standards, there is a way out for them, so that they will not be doomed. Professor Chen, yes, first of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Yu's question. In fact, my colleague will also be speaking a bit more on that. In fact, last time we have listened to the views expressed by many deputations during the last 2 meetings. In fact, last time when we listened to them, Dr. Lam has been working very closely with the TCM sector, and they have got different communication platforms, so they were fully aware of their views. And of course, one of the directions is, as Mr. Yu suggested, well, for GMP, that's the long-term target. And the D of H can fully understand that within the sector, there are different difficulties. That's why, on the one hand, we have to strike a balance between the public's need for TCM or pCM, so that they will be able to reach certain standards in terms of quality, efficacy, and so on. But then, given the high standards, they might not be able to achieve that overnight. That's why we've put together different support measures for them. And of course, last time, many deputations said that they couldn't feel it. And they are also of the view that our support measures have not been adequate. So I'll defer to Dr. Lam, who would be telling you more about what we've been doing. Yes, thank you. Well, for GMP, for pCms, as you are aware, the purpose is to promote public health, so that we hope that for all pCms, there would be consistency in terms of quality and efficacy. And initially, the committee was of the view that, if we were to align with international standards overnight, then would be able to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, so that the SMEs do not have to invest twice, so that in one go they'll be able to achieve that standard, so that we would have room to align with the international standards. And then in terms of the design, in the future there would not be any need for further changes or modifications, because we have heard from the sector that whether or not it's air conditioning or the hardware, once you change it, and if you have to change it again, then it would be very costly. So that's the consideration by the CMB, the Chinese Medicine Board. And in terms of achieving it progressively, we are not trying to rush through it in a very hasty manner, or trying to do it overnight. In fact, during the past couple of meetings, we have heard the views that, both in terms of hardware and software, they would need some time to achieve it. And therefore, our policy is to do it progressively. We have also made reference to the historical development of Western medicine. And as Mr. Yu said, would we be prepared to adopt a middle-of-the-road approach? For example, would they be required to achieve certain targets in terms of software, and then they'll be required to meet the requirements for hardware later? Well, those are all options available.
We've held many consultations with the sector, and we found that a number of them are not very clear about our proposals. So the DH and also the ITC will work together to do a lot more briefing. So we want to enhance their awareness and understanding of the proposals, and so that they know how much they have to invest into their business. And for the ITC, they do have funds available to HKIB for expanding their premises. So SMEs can consider contract out the manufacturing process. We have to adopt a progressive approach. We have to understand whether the SMEs or the sector believes that the contracting out approach is feasible and whether they can afford it. So we will only be able to know about the difficulties after the pilot is being implemented. For example, if we launch the scheme and nobody is going to join it, we may have to think about alternatives. So this is what we're doing under our progressive approach. Chairman, I agree that GMP is something difficult for the sector to embark on, but we want to ensure that quality standards are maintained, and we want to instill public confidence into pCms, and we also want to we have to understand that the neighboring countries are embarking on GMP, including on their traditional medicine. So we want to work together with the trade to do the job properly. Mr. Yu Si-wing. The government said that it's not very clear. The text is not very clear about the GMP, and the GMP sounds like a death knell to them, and they are doomed. It's the kind of feeling they have. It's just a matter of time when they will be phased out. I hope that the government can tell the sector clearly what the ultimate goals or standards are. You tell them our ultimate goal is this, and then if that is the case, what will you do? How will the sector cope with it? Now, some businesses may be forced to cease operation, and you have to know the number which will be phased out. And we may end up with having only the big companies. Is this something that the government wants to see? And you can tell the sector, say, if the government helps you enhance your safety standards. Well, look at the example of the fisheries industry. The government has been injecting money to help fishermen in transforming their business. So for the case of the pCM, if the government wishes to enhance standards, boost our image, and these are reasons that we are all well aware of. So in the process, the government has to ascertain the number of businesses that will be affected, and you have to consider allocating a sum or earmarking a sum to help the businesses to enhance their productivity and safety standards. So only by doing that, then you can have sustainability in the TCM and PCM. Now, the guest houses ordinance is going to be implemented soon, and a lot of the guest house operators, some 200, may be forced out of business. So I don't want to see the same situation happening with PCMs. There are a number of employees employed in the sector. They have contributed to the society over the past years. So you must consider offering them assistance to tide over the difficulties. You can't just say build for them a factory, and you shouldn't be forcing them to hand over their prescriptions and formulas. So what you need to do is to provide funds for them. So what is the government's ultimate objective? Thank you, Mr. Yu, for your suggestion. As what Dr. Lam said, apart from the subcommittee, we are liaising closely with the sector. We do have a long-term objective, and what is it that the sector needs? And one of the things may be funding support. But this is not the whole picture, it seems. In Dr. Lam's dialogue with them, we found that a number of them are not clear about our objective. And it's not the case that some are not willing to do it. Well, Dr. Lam has talked to a lot of people in the trade, not just the 30 deputations who came here last time. There are some small enterprises which are willing to do GMP. They don't necessarily need funding support. They need other types of support as well. Hong Kong Institute of Biotechnology will want to try out this new model. For small businesses, maybe we can do it by the way of a contracting approach, so to see how it goes. And some operators are not clear about the proposal and they don't want to hand over their prescription formula. We want to consider a contract arrangement whereby they don't have to be asked to hand out their prescription formula. So we want to explain to the sector the merits of our proposed scheme. We would continue to listen to the views of the sector. And initially, we think that apart from funding support, we should be rendering other types of assistance. Well, yes, in terms of policies and funding support, they need your help. The administration has heard our views, but they don't seem to be categorizing the forms of assistance needed. Can you categorize the forms of assistance needed? Well, say put them into category A, category B, and so on and so forth, and then try to come up with some targeted assistance for the sector, so that the government can offer some real help in the future. Some need funding support. Some don't know what you're talking about. Say some 20% of people in the trade don't understand the proposal. Perhaps you can explain more to them, provide them with more assistance in the future. So please categorize the forms of assistance needed, and so that they will not be forced out of business in the end, and they would have a bright future. And then you would be paving this, the way ahead for them. So I will be lending you my support if you do that. And people in Hong Kong will be made happy too. So the PS can discuss what we are doing now. Mr. Yu, Dr. Lam talked about software and hardware. Software, what do we mean by that? Records in sale and purchase of pCms. You must have proper records. You should have records of the number of the lots and the batch number, and you should retain samples of your pCM, so that in the events when incidents occur, then you will be able to trace the pCMs. And also that has to do with GMP practices. To the SME, such requirements will have impact on the SME's operations. They have to keep proper records, and what they need may be a set of computer, and they have to go along the way of corporatization. That's for software. And hardware, it may involve factory premises. Say in requirements relating to air ventilation and bacteria-free environment, so on. These are higher requirements, and that may need extra investment. In terms of software, they need to train up their personnel and to so that they can keep proper records. Should that come first or what? So the sector is not clear about that. What they think naturally is that they have to build new factory premises and they have to put in more money and they get worried. In the last public hearing, we had this difficulty. We do see great potential for development of TCM, but if we want to develop it, we can't stick to the old approach. We must comply with international standards in terms of export and import of TCM. And for most countries in the world, in manufacturing of drugs, GMP has been adopted. Now, if you just ask them to have a standard somewhere between the existing standard and international standards, then that would not be good enough, because it would not be able to meet the international requirements and you will not be able to export to other countries, not even the mainland. We have met a number of people from the sector and they have different requirements. There may be orally consumed products and other products. So we're not just talking about money here. The Productivity Council and also the ITF provide consultancy services, providing advice to individual enterprises, and individual prices can be helped. And it seems to be a better approach. Instead of drawing up a standard which applies to all, I would like to also respond to requests of the SMEs. The SMEs may produce one type of pCM, and there's no way that they can make further investment. So they can't afford to build a factory premises themselves. So they can consider contracting out their manufacturing process. I think given the contractual law in Hong Kong, the confidentiality requirement, I believe that the prescription formula can be kept confidential under that arrangement. So our question for the sector is whether they are willing to do it. I just want to explain our position clearly. And if you ask us to categorize their needs, well, it's difficult because different enterprises have different needs. One member has spent almost 20 minutes, so I would now like to set a time limit, 10 minutes. Mr. Yu's question, I don't think a detailed response has been given. Some people would like to drive an aircraft and some others would like to drive a bus. But then you are asking everyone to get an aircraft license. And only that you can drive a bus. So different people have different readiness. So, and you are asking people to reach the same high standards all at a go. Mr. Wang Ting-Kwang, followed by Dr. Elizabeth Quat. Thank you, Chairman. I support legislation on all these requirements. I think legislation is the only way which works. And the world trend is that there should be international standards on drugs, and we should not be narrow-minded and looking at ourselves only. But then we can't do everything at one go, overnight. Given our historical background, pCms have a diversified development. Some are developing better than others. Should we be eradicating those who do not, which do not do so well? I think we should also be helping these types of pCms.
And also, when it comes to the relevant policy, yes, I agree with that approach. But then at the same time, I also hope that there can be some measures to tie in with the policy. For example, the DS told us, or the Undersecretary told us that the HKPC has been helping out. But then, is that adequate? You will have to consider it. So what kind of support is that? Would it be that for some individual enterprises, you should adopt a more targeted approach in meeting their needs instead of just organizing a course for them? So can you go out? Can you go to their factory premises so that you can give them specific guidance? And other than technical support, what about financial arrangements? I'm not suggesting that you should give them money. You should, in fact, tell them how to approach banks for financing, or you can also give them guidelines as to how they can get financing. So for some SMEs and some PCM manufacturers, they might not have been aware of that because they just relied on their hard work and they are self-made. And that started from their earlier generations already. So they've inherited the business from their ancestors, and therefore can you just take their hand and provide them with tailor-made guidance? And I'm sure they will commend you if you are willing to do that instead of raising so much criticisms. And in terms of confidentiality about their formula, well, people have very complex mind, and what they are anxious about, well, they might not trust you, and they might not believe that what you propose would be good for them. So can you think out of the box? Can you come up with some templates so that you can convince a couple of them to go first, so that you can show them that these are showcases and they've done very well, including their prescriptions and formula. If they have not been stolen or misused, then you can then show them that these are good examples, and then they will be prepared to follow suit. So you will have to set some examples for them to follow. So I think, well, the administration will have to do it in a more detailed manner so that you will have to reach out to them, and then that can be extended to the others. So I'm not criticizing you, I'm just making these positive comments, and I hope that after listening to my comments, well, as officials, you should not just stay in your office, you should go out, and you should try to speak your mind to these SMEs. So that's all I'd like to say. Thank you. So can you offer more resistance? Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for the comment. In fact, these are very good suggestions. I also agree, and I'm sure Dr. Lam would be supplementing later. Well, for these TCM sector, if we are willing to talk to them more, then they would be willing to share their views with us and share with us their difficulties. And I agree with what you said, that is, if there are some successful examples that can be shown to them, then they would be more prepared to follow suit. So there is a chance that we can do it. Well, Dr. Lam, can you add? Can you supplement? Yes, thank you, Mr. Wong. As Mr. Wong suggested, in terms of our regulation target, we'd like to see that the sector would be able to meet the standards after the introduction of the regulatory regime. We are not trying to stifle their chance of survival. So there are other organizations, including the HKPC. They are willing to offer tailor-made support for them, including GMP requirements and also laboratory testing. For example, the HKUSC would be prepared to provide consultancy services for the sector to follow. And you made a very good point about successful examples, which would provide them with further incentive to follow suit. Well, during the last couple of meetings, if you have heard us, Actually, we have said that for GMP and also for the registration process every month, we do have an exchange forum with the sector on a monthly basis. And on the basis of such a forum for GMP requirements, we would be inviting the enterprises who have been able to achieve it to share their experience. But then they are also being honest in pointing out the difficulties, so that they would also be pointing out whether or not the current requirements are too stringent. So we would also be sharing our views with the sector as to why we'd like to impose those standards. And we'll be working with other government departments. And I'm sure Mr. Wong would understand that as a regulator, for example, on registration under GMP, so it's almost like an examination authority. So we are the examiners. That's why we also have to be very careful in terms of our support. We would be providing more example so that they would know what the process is like. But then for the details, we also have to work together with other sectors and the departments of the government, so that in terms of training, we'd be able to offer the much needed help to them. In terms of confidentiality, in the past we have had a lot of experience. For example, on registration of their formula, well, legally speaking, that would offer some form of protection. And in terms of vetting, definitely we will keep everything confidential. But then, as the Undersec just said, after all, in Hong Kong, we respect the confidentiality of contract. That's why we would like to encourage some enterprises that after they have started what the HAIB has done with regard to contract manufacturing offered by the ITF, we'd like to encourage more SMEs to give it a try. And after they have got some successful stories, then if the experience is feasible, then in the future we will see whether the scheme should be further expanded. And of course, more discussion is of course good. And other than these exchange sessions, members can be rest assured. For example, on GMP, so long as the enterprise has already got some initial thought, they are welcome to approach us so that we can have some initial discussion first, because we don't want the enterprises to run into difficulty after putting in so much resources. So if they are ready, then they can also make an appointment with us by phone so that we can have a face-to-face discussion with them. All right, so I'd like to make 3 more points. Well, on GMP, well, you're going to introduce this examination. Will the test paper be too difficult? Because what are the criteria for GMP? Would you be prepared to be more focused so that there can be some fine-tuning to the test paper or the exam papers? If you're too difficult, then people will not be able to pass it. And just now, Dr. Lam said that a number of initiatives will be put in place. How come there is still this repercussion from the sector? Have you looked into that? So please do not just tell us the good side of it. All right, if it's so good, then people would definitely be applauding and they would definitely welcome it. Why is it that there is so much repercussion in the community? So you will have to think twice about this. Third, on confidentiality. Well, in Hong Kong, yes, we respect the spirit of the contract. We respect the contract. But then you should not just put up words. So can you tell us if there is any breach of the confidentiality, if there is any encroachment or infringement of other people's interests, what is the penalty? So have you considered that? All right, I was very focused just now, and if you're able to resolve those issues, then I'm sure the sector can be better reassured, so they can put their mind at ease. So you should not just give us empty promises. It's not like making promises to a child. You will have to be more specific. All right, 3 specific issues have been raised by Mr. Wong. So can you give a written reply? Okay. Thank you, Chairman. I don't need a reply or response. Just think about it. Okay, so he doesn't need your reply. You just have to think about it. Next, Elizabeth Quad. Thank you, Chairman. I heard the administration say that, well, GMP has to be implemented and they are not going to do it in a rush. So that can be done progressively. Well, That's good. But then I'd like to know better about your understanding, because our state has also been coming up with these standards, and now in Hong Kong we are coming up with our own standards. So we have heard some comments that if we were to achieve the state standards, because in the end our ultimate market would not be in Hong Kong, but then if in Hong Kong we have to meet our own Chinese material medical standards, then it doesn't necessarily mean that when we export our products to Thailand or other countries, they would be accepted. So after they have met the Hong Kong GMP standards, it doesn't necessarily mean that they would be accepted by other countries. And on the mainland, they've also got their own standards. And for the SMEs, that would be quite a burden. In other words, they will have to take exam after exam. So what is the future development going to be like? So are you going to align your standards with the state standards? And what about overseas standards? Would that mean that they would only be required to take one examination instead of taking exam after exam? All right, I'll defer to Ms. Chair. She will explain to you the state standards and also the GMP standards and also the Hong Kong CMMC. Well, for the HKCMMC, that would apply to Chinese herbal medicine. But then for the GMP, it's the manufacturing standard. So there is a difference between the two. But then whether it's the CMMC or the other standards, as Dr. Kwok said, well, different places, including the mainland, would be somewhat different from that in Hong Kong. That's true. Precisely because of that, what we are facing is two-pronged. On the one hand, the best is for these standards to be mutually recognizable. Well, when it comes to the CMMC, for example, precisely because of that, that's why originally the CMB, when it came up with the standards, it was of the view that when GMP was to be implemented, we'd like to apply the pCms standards, that's the international standards, so that that would do away with the need for them to take examination after examination. Can you tell us what exactly is meant by PICS? So that's the highest standards for GMP. Is rather subjective. But then for the regulators around the world, internationally, they have formed this standard and they call it PICS. So that's a Pharmaceutical Inspection Convention and Pharmaceutical Inspection Cooperation Scheme. And so they have responded to the GMP standards. So the short form is PICS. So for GMP standards, many countries are striving to join this or achieve this, and the standards are PICS. So that would also do away with a lot of the difficulties. For example, if you apply the PICS standards to GMP, then it means that when your products are exported to a European country or to an East Asian country, for example, Singapore or Malaysia, then that would make it more easy to be mutually recognizable. So they would not say that, well, as your standards are not recognized by us, that's why I'll be putting in some 10 barriers before you can be registered. That's why we have got this PICS standards. And if we try to achieve that overnight, then it's better than doing it in several attempts. So that's the international standard. So that's the first thing. And second, the reason why we are saying that it might be somewhat difficult to come up with mutual recognition. Well, there are about 100 or so, or 280 such enterprises, and some 14 of them have already reached GMP standards. So even if we were to start the initial discussion with our mainland counterparts, we have to be more comprehensive so that on both sides, if we are all able to achieve the GMP standards, then we'll be able to implement it.
Now,
Coming back to PICS, we want to have mutual recognition and we want to achieve this. Then the basic requirement is we should achieve that standard all round. We want to do it in a progressive approach. First, we want to improve on our basis first. As for the HKCMMS, we want to expedite promoting the standards. So that's why the idea of a laboratory was raised in the policy address. We want to do a better job in achieving the standards for our Chinese herbal medicine, and we want to align with the world standards in the end. There are many different scenarios now. And some pCms are being exported to Southeast Asia and have achieved certain standards. And they are saying that they have to try to achieve the Hong Kong standards, HKCMMS, and they don't understand why they have to do it all over again. Is it because our standards are not in alignment with the standards of other jurisdictions? And also, some said that they can't achieve GMP at one go. So as what some members suggested, can we do it by phases? There will be some middle-of-the-road levels so that they can still continue with their operation and they don't have to close down because they don't achieve the high standards. Dr. Lam. Thank you. With regard to registration of medicine, let me cite an example. For registration of pCms in Hong Kong, actually, many of them have been imported from the mainland. When the traders try to get registered, they would try to use common standards. For example, some standards adopted by the mainland. And if they furnish all the documents, their pCms can be recognized in Hong Kong. Yes, if they get the recognition in the mainland, then they can be registered in Hong Kong. Is that right? Well, the laws in the two places differ. As long as the pCM meets with the Hong Kong definition of pCM and they can meet with the mainland standards, and then they can get registered in Hong Kong. Dr. Kwok's question is whether the pCms have to be registered again in Hong Kong, I mean those from the mainland, and vice versa. Well, we have to look in individual cases. I can say this to the legislators, and in fact, many traders get their pCM registered by providing documents from the mainland, certifying that they have been registered on the mainland. 17 labs are now issuing reports which have been recognized by the CMB and also the state. And if the product specification report and general stability reports are properly furnished, then they can get registered and recognized. We are confused. Many SMEs do not fully grasp which can get registered and which can't. And sometimes they have to get registration on the mainland and then re-register, get them registered again in Hong Kong. And it seems that they have to ask every time they have to do registration. So it seems that you don't have clear guidelines and they are going around in circles with regard to registration. How come that you don't have a common standard and then you have to give answers to inquiries made on each individual product? I understand your question. I think the registration requirements are consistent and standardized, and we do have clear guidelines. pCM may come with many different formulas and ingredients, and for, say, individual Chinese herbal medicine, the trader may not know about the marker for each individual ingredient. And many applicants are quite have scanty knowledge on this aspect. So in our exchange forums, we provide them with some reference information so that they can better understand the requirements. And many certified labs also provide similar services. We did have exchanges with laboratories on the type of markers required for certain Chinese herbal medicine. So I think Dr. Quat is saying that the trade is not well versed in such aspects. Well, you said that you have had a lot of exchange forums, and the sector keeps telling us that they are still all at sea and they don't have enough knowledge. And I think you must do something. You said that you have done this and that, but then the trade is telling us that what you've done cannot help them. I do see some difficulties here. The DH is the monitoring body, but then you're asking them to help the sector to achieve the standard, so there may be a problem there. But anyhow, this problem must be addressed. Well, if that is the case, then the government must ask some middlemen to help them out. Should you be appointing third parties to help you out, and you provide them with the relevant resources to do that work? Well, they've already asked the HKPC to help them out. Well, they've held some forums, but then the work seems not to be sufficient. So where does the problem lie? You should come up with practical assistance. Mr. Christopher Chung, followed by myself, and Mr. Fenton Fang. Any other member wishing to speak on this point? Ms. Alice Mack? I will be very strict on the timing. I think we've overrun a bit. And Mr. Christopher Chung. Thank you, Chairman. What is the difference between HKCMMS and the standards of the Chinese Pharmacopoeia Commission standards? Well, a lot of the experts here are knowledgeable on the in Hong Kong are knowledgeable on Chinese standards. Well, do they have a problem? If yes, well, what is their problem? And the mainland will not follow your standards, the Hong Kong standards. And if you ask them, they would definitely tell you to follow their standards. So shouldn't we be trying to improve on our own system and standards and to ensure that they meet with the national standards? And the trade has been telling us that you've been using a Western perspective in dealing with Chinese medicine. Well, the two disciplines differ enormously. And your standards are very confusing too. And if you change the inspector, then the other inspector may be telling you to do something else. So your standards are inconsistent. Should you be talking more to the sector, organize a couple more focus groups to listen to the views of the sector? Deputations can come to express their views on the electrical, but they are given only, say, 3 to 4 minutes to air their grievances, and that doesn't help in understanding the real situation. And the greatest problem that you are managing CM from the Western medicine approach. The mainland is a major stakeholder, but I don't think you should be setting up your own standards and not follow their standards. If we are to align with the national standards, well, we can try to improve on our basis in order to do that. And I don't think we should be overriding other standards. And I think there is a problem with what you're doing. 3 questions there. Thank you, Mr. Cheung. I will defer to Dr. Lam to talk about the Chinese pharmacopoeia and national standards. People seem to have the impression that we are managing the CM and administering CM registration from a Western medicine perspective. I would like to say that the CMCHK comprises all CM practitioners. Well, but then you are asking them to take a Western medicine management approach. Dr. Lam, can you explain more? Thank you, Mr. Chung. Let me first try to clarify the difference between the Chinese pharmacopoeia and national standards and HKCMMS. The Chinese standard is a basic standard. If the Chinese medicine can meet with that standards, and they are deemed acceptable. But for HKCMMS, our position is different. We will pick commonly used Chinese medicine, herbal medicine, and also medicine which have been involved in drug incidents. And also we will identify the Chinese herbal medicines with good cost effectiveness for our testing and recognition. So our position is different from the Chinese national standards. And the second major difference is that HKCMMS is a set of reference standards. For registration of PCM, if these PCM are manufactured in the mainland and then imported in Hong Kong, and if these are manufactured based on the national standards, then they stand a very good chance of getting them registered in Hong Kong as well. This is the Chinese as national standards recognizable on the mainland, but for HKCMMS, it's a reference standard only. So what's the purpose of the HKCMMS? For a certain herbal medicine, in the national standards, there is no limit set on the heavy metals or pesticide residue. But for the Hong Kong CMMS, we did set limits on such materials or substances. And we include more details in our Hong Kong standards compared to the national standards. Well, for pCms meeting HKCMMS, they would be considered high-quality products. So what kind of pCms are registered under HKCMMS? Is there any product which is vide by complies with the HKCMMS at the Accreditation and Certification Authority? They've commissioned the HKPC to do a testing method. Any manufacturer which is complying with the HKCMMS, there is some in the pilot scheme. As to which particular manufacturer is complying, perhaps I will have to go back and check. I don't think there is a need for you to set up a separate set of standards. All you need to do is that you tell the traders that you should have achieved the national standards, and then you should comply with the additional requirements of heavy metal. You don't have to set up your own standards, a separate one. And people are asked to spend more money. You are asking something additional to be done. And even if these additional measures are being implemented, the PCMs may not be recognized, say, in the mainland and the US and Europe, and something more has to be done. So I think this is problematic. Let me clarify further. We communicate closely with the Chinese Pharmacopoeia Commission and these the FDA is also supporting our initiatives.
其實
In fact, Mr. Chong, what you're concerned about is that there might be duplicated efforts. I understand that. That's why, once again, let me go into some of the details. Well, under the CMMC, in fact, the positioning is such that we have to meet the requirements of the pharmacopoeia, and on top of that, we will have to have additional testing. So let me give an example. If an enterprise is able to satisfy the requirements of the CMMC, then theoretically speaking, it would have been able to meet the requirements of the Chinese pharmacopoeia and national standards. But then under the CMMC, there are more detailed requirements and more indicators. For example, how we can authenticate the herbs and so on, so that in terms of the quality, it would be better placed. But then on GMP, so for the large corporations of pharmaceutical companies and the SMEs, they are very different. So if you require them to meet the requirements, of course, for the pharmaceutical corporations, they would be able to do it. They have different factories, premises, and so on. But then for the SMEs, they might just be producing very simple formulas and so on. And if you impose this requirement on them, then in terms of the cost implications, they will simply find it not affordable. So have you thought about that? I'll defer to Dr. Lam. Well, if I understand it correctly, well, for the GMP standards, in fact, that's consistent. So it applies to both the large and small corporations. So the large corporations will be able to monopolize the market. For example, if I'm just producing this ointment, all right, I'm just working on this. I'm just producing one product, but then you're actually expecting me to be the same as a large pharmaceutical corporation. So how can I make it? Mr. Chung, earlier on we have discussed this issue already. What we hope is that even for the SMEs, we will be adopting a targeted approach to cater for their needs, and the GMP is a long-term objective or target. But then, as we have said, we have no intention of stifling these SMEs. But then, that's what you're doing. It's not what you preach. It's what you have been doing. All right. I'll have to control the time better. All right. It's my turn now. Well, on the issue of Chinese medicine, after the questions raised by some members, I have this impression that is in terms of Chinese medicine development in Hong Kong, why are we having so many problems? That's because, well, we are setting it at a high level, and yet our enterprises are not able to meet those standards. So the reason why I had to interrupt, that's because we are actually coming up with these academic standards, and yet nobody is using it at all. And Hong Kong is also not the place of origin for many of these Chinese herbal medicine. And yes, as far as the academic sector, they have done a lot of researches and so on. That's very helpful. But then we have put in a lot of money, and yet we are actually coming up with standards that nobody is going to apply. So is it that we are able to do a good job if we set it very high? And we are also trying to adopt PICS as our ultimate standard. So we are setting our aim very high. We want to be the top in the world, and yet we have forgotten that we have so many SMEs. They would find it very difficult to meet the very high standards set by the administration. Even if they try to go out, can you tell us exactly which Chinese medicine has already gone into the EU? Well, none of them have been able to do it. So it's quite far away in terms of when they can achieve it. But then on item 12 is a question that I've asked earlier on. There have been reports saying that the administration has actually given more room to the HKP manufacturers so that they do not have to meet further requirements. So that's very different from our understanding. So can the administration explain to us? So when it comes to HKP, on the 30th of June, when it expires, how would these enterprises be dealt with? What's their situation going to be like? Are we already on item 2? No, we are still on item 1 because we also have this under item 1. Okay, Dr. Lam. Thank you, Chairman. Well, the expiry date of June the 30th this year is not it's not about the expiry of the certificate. It's about the HKP holder. All right, before the 30th of June, the holder will have to submit the stability test report and also the quality test report. And we have already explained that very in great detail in the paper. That is for the HKP holder. Well, by the expiry date on the 30th of June this year, if they are still not able to submit all the documents, we will continue to process all the applications. And if they are not able to submit the documentation needed, then the CMB will be looking into the merits of the case. For example, if the quality is not up to standard, then there is a chance that they would reject their application. But then for the deadline of 30th of June, it's just the deadline for the submission of laboratory test report. So it's not that the certificate would expire on the 30th of June. So before the 30th of June, they will have to submit the reports, or else if they submit it after the 30th of June, that would not be accepted. In other words, the CMB will be interviewing them in processing their application, and if they think that the documentation is not complete, then they would not be issuing them with the HKC. Is that right? Well, Chairman, I'd like to supplement from the transition from HKP to HKC as stated in the paper. That's a requirement under the law. So for the June the 30th deadline for the submission of report, because the CMB will have to scrutinize the report before deciding whether or not they can accept their application for the conversion from HKP to HKC. And if they are able to submit the report before the 30th of June, then the CMB, in scrutinizing their report, will be able to tell whether or not they have submitted the report as required already. So as to whether or not they be able to get the HKC license, well, the CMB will have to make a decision on the basis of the documentation. So it's not for us to say whether or not after the 30th of June, without the report, what is going to happen to them. Well, because it differs from case to case. So they will be inspected and there will be investigation, and if they are able to line up earlier, then that would be better. And if they line up later, then they will still be able to continue to sell it for a while. Is that right? No, that's not true. Well, I'll explain in greater detail. First of all, I have to clarify this. First, the applicant, if he submits the report on the 1st of July, all right, the deadline is the 30th of June, so he only submits it on the 1st of July. It doesn't mean that that would not be accepted. So there has never been such a statement by the CMB that if they submit it later, then the report would not be recognized or accepted. So it depends for each application, other than the fact that the CMB will have to scrutinize the application, and if there are specific reasons why there has been a delay in the submission of the report, then the CMB will be considering their grounds for the late submission. So it doesn't necessarily mean that if they pass the deadline, well, they will not be recognized, because at least that they have been willing to submit a report. And also, on dealing with individual cases, we have to abide by the law. So as far as our processing is concerned, if they fail to submit it before the deadline, all right, even if they submit it after the 30th of June, the CMB will be looking at which documentation is lacking and why they have not been submitted on time. Then whether or not they will be able to migrate to HKC registration. And if they still lack the documentation, then of course there is a chance that the CMB will reject the application. Point taken. But then what the sector is facing is that there are some 9 local testing laboratories, and also there are some a dozen or so on the mainland. So in terms of the laboratory testing, I've also checked with the laboratories. In fact, they are not willing to conduct tests for Chinese medicine because it's very difficult, because out of the different herbs, for example, for certain prescriptions, they might involve the use of a dozen or so herbs, and if you have to identify whether or not they contain a particular herb, that's very difficult, because in the process of preparation, the properties might have changed. So it's not like Western medicine. It's very difficult. And also, for some Chinese herbs, there are no markers. As Dr. Lam said, they would require certain markers before they can do the testing. And if the markers are not available in the market, then they would find it very difficult to do the testing. And also, for some laboratories, when they do the do such tests, well, the income would be very limited. For example, it takes a very long time to conduct a test on a particular prescription, and in terms of the stability test, it would also be very difficult because, after all, we are looking at some herbs. Well, for the herbs available in autumn, it would be difficult. It would be very different from that available in autumn, in spring. So it's very difficult for them to conduct the tests. That's why one of the difficulties faced by these laboratories is that they are not willing to take on such jobs. And given the fact that we have so many herbs, and also within a short space of time, the deadline is on the 30th of June. So will the sector be able to complete all the testing before the deadline? And will they be able to get a lab to do the testing for them? So that's one thing. And also, as I just said, well, for Chinese medicine, very often one formula would involve different herbs, and the content would also be different. And you're actually talking about a herbal tea with many ingredients. So the testing is already very difficult, and as some members have said, in the past, the administration has not offered any assistance to the sector, including financial support and also personnel support, because you're supposed to be the examiner. There is no reason why you should go out to help them pass the test. So in the past, you just talk about registration. You have not really organized seminars to tell them how they can meet the requirements. So would you be setting up a fund to help them migrate to the new system? Because in the past, if we try to replace our vehicles, we would also get some funding support. But then for over 10 years now, there has been no dedicated fund to help the Chinese medicine sector to migrate to the new system or to develop further. So will you consider giving us more time? And also, well, we might be erasing what's required of us in the past so that we can come up with a new system. And would you be offering genuine help to the sector, given the fact that there are so many practical difficulties? So can you reconsider postponing the deadline on the 30th of June so that there would be some breathing space for the sector, and you can also work out together with the sector as to how they can do a better job? So can you answer those questions? Yes. DS, this is not the first time that we heard this, and I can also provide some information to the chairman with regard to what kind of testing or laboratories are able to conduct those tests. In fact, the DFH, as early as 2004, the DFH has already come up with a list of laboratories both in Hong Kong and on the mainland that can do the tests. So there was 9 in Hong Kong and 17 on the mainland. So we have already come up with a list of laboratories that can do the test. And of course, individual enterprises might have different consideration as to which products would be tested first, and what's the timing of conducting such a test, and so on. So they have their own consideration. And then back in 2013, the CMB decided that the 30th of June 2015 would be the deadline for the submission of reports. Well, that's a decision taken by the CMB. And as the chairman just said, as to the concerns raised by the chairman, and also some said that they had difficulty getting a laboratory which is willing to do the test for them. Well, we can convey this to the CMB for consideration, because it's not for us, the DFH, to decide, because the CMB is a statutory body. It's for them to decide. But then I'd also like to provide you with some background information. And that's the situation. As to the other questions, I'll defer to Dr. Lam, who can supplement on the standards required. Thank you, Chairman. Well, one of the things that we've been discussing with the sector is if they feel that in terms of laboratory testing, it's difficult for them to get a lab to do the job for them.
And some labs have already got too many orders, and pCms have to queue up. Say, for example, there is one mainland lab which can undertake the work, but then it may not be within the list of labs that we recognize. Then they can make inquiry with us, and then we will see if that particular lab can be recognized especially for us. So we would like to make it more convenient for the sector to do their testing jobs. Second, I hope that the chairman and members can understand, in terms of regulation of drugs, an enterprise does it has its responsibility to ensure that the drugs are safe. No matter it's traditional medicine or Western medicine, the manufacturers must invest into ensuring that the products are safe. Many operators have been selling their drugs for a number of years, and each of them with a HKP, so that means that they should have achieved the basic standards. They have to find the lab to do more testing for them. So can you suggest to the CMB to give more time for the trade to do the testing? So my time's up. Next one, Mr. Vincent Fang. Sorry, the speaker's not coming through. We've been discussing this issue for a number of years. Dr. Lam, you are a very soft-spoken person, and your remarks are convincing, but then it's all talk, no concrete work. I've been following up the issue of CM for many years, and no progress seems to have been made. Back then, Mr. Tong Chi-Hua recommended this Chinese medicine port. It's nowhere to be seen. And the CE now said that he attaches a lot of importance to CM. Well, more and more people around the world are consuming Chinese medicine. I get very confused after reading through the paper, let alone SMEs, PECs, and GMP. Let's just focus on testing. I think the information is confusing. Dr. Lam, you said that there are 9 labs in Hong Kong, 17 labs on the mainland. And for individual cases where the lab is not recognized, then you may make inquiries and then try to recognize it. So why can't the two governments work together, the Hong Kong and mainland governments? What is the difference between the testing standards between labs in Hong Kong and the mainland? We enjoy very good relations with the mainland now. Why can't you come up with a set of standardized standards? You said that the standards in China can be accepted, but then something is still lacking and something additional has to be done. And maybe you feel too embarrassed to say that the national standards of the mainland are not up to standard, and so you said that something more has to be done. So can the two governments work hand in hand? Can these 26 labs adopt the same set of standards? And we recognize the tests conducted by these 26 labs. You enjoy very good relations with the mainland CM authorities. Why can't you do that? Undersecretary. Thank you, Mr. Fang. The standards of the Hong Kong and mainland labs are consistent. All labs have to have their facilities which achieve the recognized standards before the lab can be recognized as a standard lab. So we must ask the labs which have achieved certain standards to do the testing. So the standards are adopted are the same, right, Dr. Lam? Ms. Chair, please switch on your mic. A lab may conduct testing on many different things, and they can use different methods to test the same substance. The labs used by the mainland, the standards used by the mainland labs should follow that of Hong Kong in order to that the registration can be done in Hong Kong. So what we mean by accredited labs are those which use our methods, promote methods, and achieve our proposed standards. Well, can you tell us which labs on the mainland can achieve our standards? Well, all of them are accredited or recognized. So we have 17 on the mainland and 9 in Hong Kong. So there are a total of 26 labs. So as long as the products are tested in these 26 labs and they're found to be in order, that means that they are acceptable and okay. Yes, but then these 26 labs are in the full capacity. I've read through, I've read a newspaper article today. There was this Yunwo herbal tea, and a lot of people consume it. And they said that Camwa herbal tea rather, and they've already got HKP, and they want to apply for HKC. And they said, it is reported in this article, that they have to go through the product specification test and general stability test, and that will take 2 years. If the 26 labs don't have the capacity for testing their products, and then you are asking them to do this and that and submit the reports, well, it's very problematic. You have to look at the capacity of these 26 labs, how many orders and can they take on every month, and what is the amount of jobs needed, and how long it will take in that. Well, you have to come up with all this information to allay the worries of the traders. Now, if you don't allow the Camwa herbal tea to be sold in Hong Kong anymore, then people get worried. We understand all these. We ask for reports, certain reports, if HKB is going to be converted to HKC, and the trade should know this requirement back in starting from 2004. Different enterprises have different considerations as to when to submit their products to a lab for testing at a certain time. They may have different plans for different products. In light of the deadline on the 30th of June, then enterprises have to make certain decisions on testing. And that actually, this deadline was made known to them in 2013, early 2013. I understand that it takes time for them to do the testing and submit the reports. And individual enterprises may have their own difficulties. And if they do have difficulties, they can explain to the CMB, say what difficulties they have in submitting a full set of reports. And then it will be up to the CMB to make its own decision. It's just like Western medicine. If you can't furnish a full set of documentation at a certain time, then you have to do some explaining. Does the government have any information on how many pCms are on the queue waiting for the conversion of HKB to HKC? And then you can also give us information on the capacity, monthly capacity of the labs, and how many pCms are in the queue. Now, if we find that after having all this information, then the people have to wait for 4 years, then you will say that you will allow them to sell the product for these 4 years, and then they can get the conversion in the application or registration. There are some 8,000 products which are waiting for conversion from HKP to HKC, and for some of them, some reports have been submitted, and some are waiting to be tested. And some labs have reached full capacity, and that has been one of the reasons cited by the traders for late submission of report. And the CMP will also look at the reasons given, and the traders may say that they would be doing the test on a certain date, and we do accept explanations like those. What's most important is that when it comes to the stage of vetting, then we will look at all this information, and if they have difficulties in the testings, they can present them to us. I'd like to thank Mr. Fang for his reminder. We would look to see whether the 26 labs have reached their full capacity, and then we will talk to the mainland authorities to see whether we can expand the list of labs recognized. And the testing takes a long time, and the test fees are exorbitant. This is a difficult type of test. According to estimates, if we have to finish the testing of all these 8,000 products in 26 labs, how long will it take? 3 years or 5 years or what? Ms. Chair. It's difficult for us to estimate the time. We have designated these 26 labs in 2004. If the drug manufacturer waits till the last minute to do the testing and submit the report, then there's nothing we can do. To our understanding, they have to submit a lot of information, not just the reports. Is that right? Well, it depends on the type of products. They may have to submit more than one report, many reports. Is that correct? Depends on the complexity of the product. And different documents may be required. It will be really up to the manufacturer or the enterprise to decide on when they will do the testing in the lab and submit the report. Let's make an assumption. There is 8,000 products on the waiting list, and there are 26 labs. Well, let's not count those who may close down business in the next couple of months. Let's say it's 8,000 products, 26 labs. How long will it take? It's just a simple mathematics, simple calculation based on your experience. Sorry, the mic's not coming through. You want a ballpark figure in terms of timing. It's difficult for us to make such calculations. We know that there are 8,000 enterprises. I do understand. I just want a ballpark figure. 8,000 products, 26 labs. Maybe everything can be completed in 4 years. Then you can tell the sector that you can continue selling the products in the next 4 years, and that's okay, acceptable. For among the 8,000 products, some products may be oils and so on, and those may take a shorter time. And of course, we have to understand what the lab is asked to do. Well, don't give me all the problems. Don't try to complicate things. I just need an average figure. Well, let's not talk about the number of labs may increase in the future. Well, let's cast all that aside. Just be simple. 8,000 products, 26 labs. Cannot be given an average time frame. No, can't be done. Let me put it this way.
Please be brief. All right. In terms of the time frame that we can give you, well, in calculating that, because you have to do the stability test, and after you have given the job to the laboratory, how long does it take for the laboratory to complete the test? But then it also depends on whether or not the lab is prepared to take on the job. Because according to Mr. Vincent Fang, all right, there are 8,000 products. How much time would it need for all the 8,000 products to be tested? All right, normally, how long would it take for the laboratory to complete the test? It's not what you're asking. Well, taking the herbal tea as an example, all right, they have to submit a report, and then the product has to be tested. All right, if they have to get the certificate, and according to them, it would take 2 years before the report can be available. So even if the report has been submitted, the testing would have to wait. And according to their estimate, it would take 2 years for them to submit the report. So is it that so long as they have submitted the report, even if the lab test result is not out, then they can be rest assured they can continue to sell the product? So that would be more reassuring. And I think that's what is needed by the sector. As a member of the public, I would also take it very seriously. All right, if that herbal tea is no longer available in the market, what is going to happen to me if I can't take it? Mr. Fang, I don't know if it's right to use this angle to explain the situation. Please be brief. All right, you talk about the 2-year requirement. I think it's about the stability test, because if you buy a particular pCM product, they will have to give you a use-by date. That's why in the laboratory test, for example, for the product that can be kept in room temperature, well, let's say if they use a use-by date of 4 years, then well, this testing would be necessary, because they will have to see if the product can be used for that long. And if they are not able to get a laboratory to do the test, but then so long as they have signed a contract, well, there is a chance that the CMB would give them a conditional conversion if other documentation is complete. But then, of course, there is also a chance that the CMB would reject the application. But then, what we can tell the sector is that, well, for the time that would be needed for the test to be completed, we would be prepared to be flexible. All right, if they were to migrate from HKP to HKC, then within 3 years, they will have to submit all the documents and the reports to you, or else they will be out. Is that right? No, not absolutely. Because they can give a reason. If the reason is that, for example, if they are not able to get a lab to do the job, or if the lab's testing process has encountered some problems, then the CMB would be prepared to look at their case. Well, let me say this. All right, the CMB would be looking at whether or not you have already made your best endeavor to do it. For example, if they can see that you have already submitted or given, you have already approached the laboratory, but then if the stability test result would take 2 years to complete, then if they can see that you have already tried to approach a lab, but then it's been rejected, then of course, with common sense, we can all understand that such grounds can be submitted to the CMB for consideration. Next, Ms. Alice Mack, Chairman, from what I've heard, I have to say that whether or not it's the CMMC or the other standards, I think these are all done for the benefit of the public. Because as a member of the public, of course, we have to see whether or not the product can be used for 10 years as claimed by the manufacturer. And also, if it contains any other ingredients so that it is able to kill pain. That's why I think we have to recognize and confirm the objective. From what we have heard, whether it's Dr. Lam or the Undersecretary, you said that the CMB would be considering the applications on a case-by-case basis. I think what's most difficult for the sector is that apparently you are only prepared to deal with the cases on a case-by-case basis. All right, if they are able to put the right questions to you, then they'll be able to get the right answers. But then, what if they don't know how to ask questions or where they should go to? All right, you said that the CMB would be prepared to consider exceptional grounds. But then, what if the manufacturer might not have been able to do it? All right, you've been very kind to us, but then when they approach you, it might be a different story. You might not be that kind to them. That's why they have a lot of uncertainties, and that's why they have a lot of anxieties. So can you tell us exactly how you communicate with them? We understand that every time there might be cases which will have to be considered on a case-by-case basis. But then, as a colleague just said, can you come up with some statistics as suggested by UC Wing just now? All right, you said many times that, all right, if it's an ointment or if it's for oral intake, then can you come up with some statistics? For example, for ointment, in the past, based on the past experience, it would take this period of time to process it or to complete the laboratory test. And then for other products, the average time taken would be that long, so that the sector will have a better idea as to what is going to happen. This morning, we heard you say most often that that will be considered on a case-by-case basis. Yes, I agree. That might have been the case. But then, as far as the sector is concerned, they don't know whether or not you would be giving them exceptional consideration. Yes, from what I've seen, well, my question would be very similar to that asked by Mr. Fang. All right, for the herbal tea, well, I read from the newspaper that they are not just worried about the 2 years, but then they said that as there are no markers for certain herbs, you might not be able to test it satisfactorily. That's why they are trying to change it into a food item instead of a pCM. So, have you considered that? There might be products which the manufacturers might try to convert to food items in order to take advantage of the loophole of the law. That might be easier. Because for health food, it might be easier to meet the requirements. So have you considered that? And what's the effect going to be like? Because for health food, there is no law regulating that. The law on that is very loose. And according to what Mr. Lam said, if they're able to meet CMMC, then most likely they'll be able to meet the requirements under the Chinese pharmacopoeia. I think that's a good thing. You're telling us that if Hong Kong products are able to meet the Hong Kong standards, then in fact our standards are somewhat higher than that on the mainland. So that would give us more confidence in our own products. But then as far as the manufacturers are concerned, and also for the SMEs, they might not be able to meet the standards right away. And also given the small Hong Kong market, after they have met all the requirements, well, they will have to invest very heavily in such production and manufacture. And if they are not able to get the registration after all the efforts, then they might not think it's worthwhile. So can you give us a prospect? All right, we've been told that we would be setting up a Chinese medicine port. So if we're not able to do this, then, well, when it comes to the CMMC, when you contacted the mainland authorities, so to what extent will we be able to influence them so that they would be able to enhance their standards too? In other words, if their standards can be aligned with us, or if they are influenced by us and as a result they are prepared to enhance the standards, then I think that would be good, so that at least there will be fewer people coming to Hong Kong to buy drugs. And then for our product market, we would also be able to widen it. That would be helpful to them, so that they would have the impression that if they're prepared to invest in it, then they will be able to broaden their market. Would that be the case? Yes, thank you, Ms. Mack, for your comments and questions. Well, let me explain Well, apparently, from what I've heard from many members, and in some cases, even the sector might be of the view that for the case-by-case consideration, well, there might be some confusion amongst them. In fact, that's because we would like to be more relaxed in our consideration, and we are prepared to be flexible. But then the sector might have this view that, well, if everything is considered on a case-by-case basis, then they will have no idea as to what is the outcome. All right, as we said, many years in 2004, we have already come up with the standards as to when the individual manufacturer is going to submit the product for testing. Well, it's their own consideration. That's why we are prepared to be more relaxed. So we are prepared to tolerate the situation. All right, if they submit if they only do the test very late, and if they are able to give us the reasons, and if you really have the intention of doing it, then we will be prepared to tolerate and put up with it. And if there is no individual consideration, then we will just say that the deadline is a particular date, and that's it. So we also have to think about it ourselves. That is the way we are going about it. The fact that we are trying to be more relaxed, that might give rise to confusion. So is that a good way to go about it? So that's something for us to consider. And also, is it that for the products that are not able to get registered, can they just convert to become food items? No, that's not the case. Well, for any oral intake products, the regulation is also very stringent because there might be side effects. And if they contain Western medicine, then that would be regulated under the relevant laws. And if they contain Chinese medicine, that would also have to be registered before they can be sold in the market, because we have to conduct tests to find out what the ingredients are. And if they are not able to do it, all right, if it's a health product, just now you said that for health product, at present, there is no dedicated law to regulate them. We do have relevant legislation, for example, Public Health and Municipal Services Ordinance. So even if it's just a food item, it will also have to be fit for consumption by humans. And if they have any health claims, for example, if I am able to achieve certain health effect, then that they would also have to meet the requirements under the relevant legislation. So we do have relevant legislation, that is the UMAO, and also the Trade Descriptions Ordinance. So we do conduct sample testing on these health products to find out if they contain Chinese medicine. All right, if they are found to contain Chinese medicine, and if you claim it to be a health product, then you would also be prosecuted. As to the third question on CMMC, Dr. Lam can supplement precisely as what Ms. Mack just said, and Dr. Lam already explained. It's about the quality. Yes, the quality would be somewhat higher when compared to the Chinese pharmacopoeia, and that's also a quality assurance, and they would be confined to the more commonly available Chinese herbs. And in terms of the pricing, we are actually talking about high quality products. So precisely because we'd like to see better development, that's why we have decided to come up with the CMMC. Dr. Lam? Yes, as the Undersecretary just said, well, we do influence each other. And we hope that that would be good influence, so that on the other side, they would also enhance their standards. On the one hand, in terms of the scrutiny of a CMMC, we have set up an international expert panel, and within that international expert panel, we have already got representatives from the CFDA and also the Chinese Pharmacopoeia Commission representatives. And we are aware that some concepts have also been brought to their side. And also for the EU's pharmacopoeia, they've also said that they would be making reference to our research results, so that they could also be brought to the EU. So in the long run, and as Ms. Mack is aware, in this year's policy address, we're going to set up a Chinese medicine testing center. That's because we'd like to broaden the impact or the influence of the CMMC. So we are not just going to do tests on Chinese medicine. We would also be looking at the oral intake medicine, so that such information can also be transferred to the trade in order to promote the further development of the sector.
I think we've spent quite some time on this item covering GMP and also registration of pCms and also HKCMMS. We want to convey the following points. GMP should be designed for this benefiting the SMEs, and we should not rush into it, implementing it. And some members have asked that the government should set up a body to help the trade transform and upgrade. There is a suggestion that a special fund be set up for development of CM and for assisting the trade. We also said that we should extend the deadline of the 30th of June, and some members have also referred to the mutual accreditation between the mainland and Hong Kong. And I hope that the Hong Kong government can do something on this. If registration is being done in Hong Kong and then re-registration is needed in the mainland, then should that be improved on? So there have been suggestions on that front. Also, difficulties in doing testing, some 26 labs, and they have reached full capacity. Can the government help out a bit? With regard to difficulties in testing, I do have a suggestion myself. What are the actual difficulties encountered in pCM testing? I would suggest that this subcommittee visits a lab, well, perhaps one of the 3 largest ones, and the labs may also be working on the pCM, so that the members can have a full understanding of the testing process. What are the problems and difficulties? Can the administration arrange that? Members, do you agree to this visit? Members? Both of you, do you agree? Yes? So these are the points that we would like to make for this item. So let's move on to the next item, and that is the arrangements for migration of pCMs from transitional registration to formal registration. Why do we want to discuss this? For pCMs originally on HKB and which have obtained HKC subsequently, and the traders of HKP should sell only HKC products after all the HKP products have disappeared in the market. Well, and this transitional arrangement can spark a lot of problems. And in the public hearing last time, some manufacturers said that they have produced certain products which are being sold on the market and they don't want to recall them. So they have to wait until the products have been sold out before they can produce another batch of HKC products. And this means that in this interim period, the factory has to cease production because the sale of all the HKP products may take 1 year, and they don't want to recall the products, and so they have to wait for 1 year until all the products, HKP products, have been sold out before they can launch the HKC products. So this the transition is not proper in their eyes. Our understanding is that actually the products are the same. And actually the traders have to call their products HKC after they have been given the HKC. But the products are still the same. The trade doesn't want all the HKP products to be sold out before they can launch the HKC products. Administration, do you have any response on that point? Thank you, Chairman. Dr. Lam, can you explain? We do have certain legislative requirements, and I will defer to Dr. Lam to give you all the details. I think this is a good thing for the trade because they ultimately get the HKC registration. I think it's a matter of the provisions of the legislation. Say, for example, if we want to replace your old new ID card with a new one, once you've got the new ID card, the old one will not be valid anymore. So the same applies here. CMB's view is clear. When they've got the HKC, their HKP registration becomes invalid. So in other words, in the market, there should not be two products being sold, HKP, HKC, branded as these two products, despite the products are the same. The trade has told us that they may suffer great losses if they have to recall all the HKP products and then turn them into HKC products. They do have such a concern, and CMB has held a meeting recently, and they have studied the matter in great detail. And ultimately, they have come up with this very good suggestion, and that is 1 year will be allowed for the HKP holder to choose when to get the HKC. Does it mean that once the HKC registration has been obtained, all the HKP products on the market cannot be sold anymore? Yes, we have to meet with the spirit of the law. The CMB appreciates the trade's concern, and they decide to give them 1 year. The trade's concern is that they want all the HKP products to be sold as much as possible first in the market, and then they don't have to recall so many HKP products. So to better balance the public interest and the interest of the trade, so we are giving them 1 year's time to choose when to get the HKC. We understand the chairman's concern on the transition arrangement. If the trader has got the HKC, they can launch the products right away. And I think that the proper arrangements can be put in place with regard to transition. This is a legislative requirement. But not only that, we don't want to confuse the users. We don't want to see the same type of products sold but coming in with different registrations. The number should be the same, but it's just the registration is different, HKP and HKC. Well, let me give you more details. The number will be different. And you will return that from HKP to HKC, and then the number following that registration will also change. And we will just give them the number based on the registration sequence. And also, there might be some changes to the packaging. Say, in a period of 10 years, the ingredients may be found to be problematic, and then in the packaging, the traders may have to change the wordings thereon. So the change in the packaging has to do not only with the change in the number, but also other wordings as well. So the CMB would like to strike a balance between the public interest and the trade's aspirations for the problems to be minimized, we will have this 1-year transition period. If you allow both the HKP and HKC products to be on the market on the same time, but actually they are the same product, then that can never be allowed. And it will be very confusing. Well, this is a very different from replacement of ID card. Here we are dealing with a factory manufacturing drugs and then putting them up for sale on the market. Now, and then they obtain HKC registration. Should they continue with manufacturing? And they are asked to recall all the HKP products before they can launch the HKC products. So it gives the impression that there might be problems with the HKP products. Perhaps the manufacturer doesn't want to recall all the products. They will wait till the HKP products have been sold out. Well, does it mean that they have to cease manufacturing during this interim period while they are waiting for the products to be sold out? I'm not an expert in this area. Well, you're not just talking about changes in the packaging, but also the changes in the serial number. The number on the packaging may change, so that's why the products have to be recalled. Perhaps the manufacturer may have plans to replace the packaging, and perhaps they estimate that the products may be sold out in 3 months on the market. Then they can think about manufacturing the products for supply after 3 months. But you can't produce HKC products in the interim period, is that right? Well, what you can do is you make estimates on when the products can be sold out, and then you will try to manufacture HKC products based on that. Members, any questions? Dr. Elizabeth Quat. There must be an intention behind the legislation and the purpose. And the SME's greatest problem is when they will be able to obtain HKC. So it's very difficult for them to map out a production plan. In this case, the HKC has already been obtained. And we are now particularly giving a 1-year transition period for them to change. And once they've got the HKC, they can say that I would like to make this switch immediately, or they can opt to do the switch 12 months down the line after all the HKP products have been sold. So the 12 months are there for them to make the transition. Well, in other words, taking the analogy of the HK ID card, you can get the ID card, new ID card now, and you can still use the old ID card for 12 months before you put the new ID card into use. So that's why we say that you can have 12 months to make your own arrangement. Under the legislation, we can't have the two same product in 2 different types of packaging being sold on the market. So, I mean, the transition arrangement is necessary. I don't think this is a transitional arrangement. I'm not sure you get my point. Originally, they produced HKP products, and then they apply for HKC, and the government grants them HKC. Then the government says that you can obtain your HKC anytime within the next year. And meanwhile, my factory still continue to make HKP products. Now, say for a certain month, I plan to obtain the HKC registration, and then I should have all the HKP products sold out before I can launch the HKC products. The question is, if not all the HKP products have been sold out, I have to recall them and then dump it into the landfill. And then the HKC products are launched, then that means a loss on the part of the manufacturer, and also we create a lot of unnecessary garbage. There is no good interface. Why don't we do it more properly? Say, I give you 6 months' time, and then during the 6 months you can launch HKC products to replace HKP products, and then the HKP products can be phased out gradually.
Or else, from the day when I get it, then then there can be no HKP products in the market. Then I'll have to recall it. So what do you expect the manufacturers or the producers to do? All right. If I plan to get the new ID card, then for 6 months I'll have to have a fasting, so that by the time when I get the new ID, then I'll be able to manufacture the new products and then have them sold in the market. So you can say that, all right, it's for you to decide when you'd like to get the HKC, but then if I get the HKC, then I'll have to recall the HKP products that are still available in the market. Do you understand what I mean? Yes. So concerning the transitional arrangement for the sector, it's not transitional at all. And of course, they all like to get the most favorable treatment, because in the meantime, they will have to recall HKP products if they have not been sold out. So that would involve a process of recall of these products, and therefore there is no smooth or seamless transition. So the impression that that would cause some nuisance to the public. So in this regard, can there be some changes in order to allay the concerns? So can a decision be taken by the board? Well, let me first say that this is not for the CMDC to decide. So let me put it this way, Chairman. You might think that this is not a smooth transition at all, because you're talking about having the same product with HKP and HKC being available in the market. Well, the law does not allow the product to continue to exist in the earlier market, because we're talking about two markets. Well, the product itself has not been changed, because when they apply to change from HKP to HKC, the content, in other words, the formula or the prescription has not changed. It's only that they will have to change the batch number on the package. So in the production process, they can continue to manufacture the products, but then they are not supposed to sell it. In other words, they are not allowed to be sold in a package containing the HKC registration. But then, if the substance is HKC product, so the package does not have to be HKP. Well, the substance will be the same, but then before the product are sold out, you will have to recall it. Is that right? Well, for the products that have to be recalled, they are the remaining ones. But then, if you look at the substance of the HKC and HKP products, it's the same. So what kind of label do they have to put on the package? Well, it's for them to decide, and according to their plan, for example, within a year's time, when are they going to say that we are not going to manufacture HKC products, and if there are any we will only be manufacturing HKP products. So all they need to do is to recover the package and then change it. All right, if they have put on the label of HKP, they will have to make an estimate as to when the products will be sold out. And if I have to make sure that all the products are sold out, then at least for 6 months I cannot continue to manufacture any product, because I will have to make that plan. Well, that's the legal requirement. That's why nothing can be changed. Is that right? Correct. So is there any room for maneuvering? For example, can you just put on a new label, or can you just change it by making some change on the label? All right, if you have a plan, if you have a year's time to plan for your manufacturing program, then can you make some suggestion as to how they can avoid having to do a recall, and then at the same time they can continue to do the manufacturing. If the sector thinks that the planning is problematic, if they think that they cannot change the package in a year's time, then we would suggest that they should approach the DFH to see what can be done about it, because our law has already made it clear that is to safeguard public safety, and we also want to make sure that there would not be any fake products available in the market. What about putting on a new label? Apparently, you're not even prepared to allow them to put on a new label. All right, the product itself has not changed at all. You're talking about the same product. It's lawful. It's only that the batch number has been changed, and there might be some requirements that have to be spelled out. But then if they have not sold out all the HKP products, the current problem is that they will have to recall it, because at the same time, you're not going to allow a product with two batch numbers being available in the market. And then if you do not allow them to put on a new label, then the only thing that they can do is to throw them away. So all they need to do is to change the packaging. But then as far as the substance is concerned, if you're talking about the same product, then, Chairman, as you said, all they need to do is to change the package. But then if they have a bottle and then there is a wrapping or a package, and then you're requiring them to change the packaging. But then, in fact, the substance does not have to be changed. What about the serial number? If there is something printed on the label, then that would not be allowed. So you're actually requiring them to remove the content, and then you will have to put them into a new package. So in the production process, that would be disturbing. And if you ask me, I think it's easier to dispose of them than removing the content and then repackaging again. That would also result in some waste being disposed of, because the substance is still useful. Why do they have to dispose of them? Well, they can time it because they have been given a year's time to plan it. And as the chairman just said, all right, they might decide not to produce or manufacture it for 6 months. Well, that would not happen, because if the substance is the same, in other words, they have already got plans in place as to when they can sell a certain quantity of such a product, and then they will be producing or manufacturing HKC products. But then you have not given them the HKC number yet, because on the day when you give them the HKC number, then they can only sell the product with the HKC mark. Is that right? Can I make a suggestion? In fact, the premise or the most important thing is to make sure that you comply with the legal requirement. And there is no question of allowing the same product with two registration number being sold in the market. All right, if they can use the same bottle and then they have a new label on it, I think, number one, because from time to time we've been communicating with the sector, including this exchange session with the sector. So we'll see what their biggest concerns are. Because earlier on, their biggest concern was that, with the 1 year grace period, that would be okay. But then last time at the public hearing, they didn't just say that the 1 year grace period would be okay. They'd like to have a smooth transition. And I think we need to have to use collective wisdom, because we will see how things can be done properly. All right. Well, there is no question of allowing the same product to be sold in the market with two labels. So I'd like to clarify this with you. Okay, you said that there would be 1 year's transitional period. All right, I've already given you the HKC registration, but then as to when you would like to start that is for you to decide. Does it mean that, let's say, if you give me the approval and then a year later, I'll be selling the HKC product? But then from the date when you give me the approval, does it mean that I will immediately be able to get the HKC registration number? Yes. If everything is okay, so within a year's time, anytime they can produce or manufacture the HKC product. So things have to be done in a reasonable manner. Well, they would also have to give us some administrative time to deal with that. So does it mean that after the approval has been given, then they can sell it a year later? All right. If they've got the HKC registration, then they are not allowed to sell any HKP product. So the HKP will immediately lapse. That's the problem. That's why we are trying to come up with ways to help the sector. Okay, during the transitional period, after you've got the HKC, will they be allowed to sell the HKP product for another year? But then they will also have to make sure that at the same time there will not be the same product with two labels available in the market, because the law does not allow the same product with two labels being available in the market. But then as soon as they get it, if there is no transitional arrangement, I think there is some misunderstanding. In fact, what we are talking about is the same thing. In fact, we have written the letter telling them that approval has been given as to when the HKP will be changed to HKC is for you to decide. All right, what you're saying is, for example, today I've already got the approval. All right, today is the 13th of March, and then I've already got the approval. You already know that you've already got the HKC status. But then as to when you're going to put it in the market, that's for you to decide. You have a year's time to decide. And during that year, you can continue to sell the HKP product. It's not a problem at all. So what we are saying is the same thing. So that would not affect when we're going to give you the HKC approval. So that's another set of procedure. Well, they've already passed the exam. It's about when they're going to get the certificate. All right, they've been told that they've passed the exam. Well, this would affect some 8,000 products. In the future, they will change from HKP to HKC. In other words, there are some 8,000 products in the market, and all of a sudden, several hundred will be getting the HKC status. They'll be facing this problem. Well, some might be sold more quickly, others might take a long time to be sold out. So for those products, they will have to be recalled. So that's a matter of transition. So I think it's a big problem. All right, time is limited and it's running out. So would you be brief in your response? Well, can I make a suggestion? Thank you, Chairman, and Elizabeth Quartz, for your suggestion. You have come up with different suggestions. Well, as far as we are concerned, well, so long as we comply with the law, in fact, for the operators and the manufacturers, they are very smart, so they can come up with different ways. We can contact them. For example, if they have any suggestions, then we'll go back and take a look. So long as it does not violate the legal principles that have been set out, there is a lot of room to maneuver. For example, on the conversion, on the transition, or if they have suggestions, we'll be prepared to consider them. All right, after the meeting, if the sector has any comments, then we can invite the Bureau and also Dr. Lam to help out, to see how that can be dealt with. All right? We have to adjourn here, and then next time, when we meet again, can I suggest that we should also be looking at the testing and accreditation of Chinese medicine, and also how we can converge with the mainland requirements. So I'll take it up with the DFH and see what we can discuss next time. All right, meeting is now adjourned.